Today I have number one New York best-selling author, TV host, podcast host, and founder of the outdoor lifestyle and media brand MeatEater. There's a new eight-part series called Hunting History with Steven Rinella, and I have Steven Rinella here, who's not only the host, but the executive producer. Good morning, Steven. How are you?
Good. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
I'm glad to have you on. Tell us about this eight-part series, Hunting History with Steven Rinella.
Yeah. Just with all the respect, it's my last name is pronounced Rinella. No problem.
Rinella,
No.
thank you.
Oh, you're all right, dude. Don't worry. So what we do is it's an eight-part series where we look at eight of the most intriguing outdoor mysteries that we have in the United States of America. And these are stories that we investigate, ranging from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific, from Alaska to the American South. And they're all mysteries that people are going to have a little bit of awareness on. They probably don't know the full story, but they're aware of there being something cooking there. And they're all set in these great wilderness environments. And they range in things going back to the 1970s, like D.B. Cooper, back to the late 1500s, such as the lost colony of Roanoke. So again, it's things that viewers are going to probably have a little background information on, but they're going to be blown away by the complexity of these stories, and also the fact that there are still active investigations going on in all these cases.
Could you do me a favor and bring me up to speed on especially the lost colony of Roanoke? Just a little bit.
Yeah, man, I would love to. That's one of my favorite episodes. So if you go back to the late 1500s, you have all the countries in Western Europe, Spain, France, England, they're all vying and fighting each other to try to get a foothold in North America and South America and the New World. England's first colony, their first attempt at establishing a colony in what became the United States, they bring over 117 colonists and drop them off on Roanoke Island in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. A bunch of weird stuff happens. We tell the whole story, but no one comes back to check on them for several years. When they come back to check on them, all 117 people have vanished. To this day, it is unclear. Their fate is unclear. There have been pieces of fraudulent evidence put forward, many theories put forward, but these 117 colonists vanish. That is the oldest mystery we look into. But oddly, there are still people searching for clues, and not only that, arguing vehemently among these different groups about what the theory is about what happened to them.
Wow, and you're going to answer some of that for us, correct? Hopefully.
Well, I don't want to give away the end, but
a little bit. Just you give us more information.
It's a real tough one, and in the end, I don't know that we're ever going to get, because of the details we lay out in the show, I don't know that we'll ever have a satisfactory answer.
Steven, what's really interesting to me is, and again, I'm just a little bit envious. Tell me about this love for the outdoors.
Well, yeah, I was raised by an outdoorsman. So I grew up hunting and fishing and trapping, and then developed an interest in writing, around the time I was in high school, and eventually hit on this idea that I was going to write about the outdoors, and I didn't even know any writers, but by pursuing that vision, I started to do that and started to write, and then got involved in television and kept writing at the same time, got involved in podcasting. And so I've been fortunate to work on a lot of different projects over the years. And on this show, I was able to work with some really good friends and longtime collaborators to chase down some of these stories.
I think it's what's interesting for me, Steven. You don't look like a millennial. First of all, you don't look like it, but you had a podcast.
I don't know if I am, but at what age? I'm 50 years old, man.
Yeah. So you're up there with me. So what's interesting to me is you had a podcast. Everybody thinks about millennials and podcasts and stuff like that. What made you start a podcast?
Man, I became friends with the first podcast I ever did. The first podcast I ever went on was hosted by a friend of mine, very prominent podcaster, Joe Rogan, and he over the years encouraged me to start a podcast. So that's how I got into it. And I got into it like fairly early in the game, you know, on podcasting. I've been doing it for at this point, I've been doing podcasting for a long, long time.
Wow. Steven, one more time. How do I pronounce your last name again?
Rinella.
Rinella. I've been speaking with
sir.
Steven Rinella. I'm just a little envious because he's an outdoorsman and he looks healthy. That's the other thing, too. Looks very healthy. Steven, I'm looking forward to watching this Hunting History with Steven. And it's going to be great. It's on the History Channel, correct?
Yes, sir. It premieres January 28th on the History Channel, 10 p.m. Eastern. So do the math as you move west from there, and it'll run for 8 weeks.
With all the mysteries that you're looking for, I have one last question for you.
Go ahead.
Are you a member of Men in Black?
No, sorry, I'm not.
Fantastic question. Thank you so much for joining us on Morning Blend.
Thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
Appreciate it.